Hollywood executives get paid millions of dollars to make decisions. Today we're talking about the iconic movie roles that nearly went to actors who would have made us all wonder what went wrong. Today's episode is dedicated to the times they almost made the wrong decision. Movies such as Indiana Jones, Forrest Gump, and The Matrix, just to name a few, with some other surprises thrown in.
This is the Welcome Distraction Podcast with the Kemp Brothers. Their immature stories, thoughts, and opinions are their own and should be taken with the same level of seriousness as a drunk uncle's late-night conspiracy theory. They are not responsible for any brain cells lost, friendships ruined, or questionable life choices made under their influence. Now buckle up, buttercups.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Welcome Distraction with the Kemp Brothers, the show where we spend our free time examining decisions made by people with millions of dollars and surprisingly questionable judgment. We're talking about alternate universe casting decisions that could have completely changed some of the most iconic movies ever made. A few of these worked out because of scheduling conflicts, some happened because actors passed on the role. Others happened because Hollywood executives accidentally made the right decision for once. So buckle up as we explore the timeline where Indiana Jones has a mustache, Neo is dropping Fresh Prince one-liners, and Buddy the Elf looks like he's one bad day away from getting tased in a shopping mall. So I'll come right out the gate with a big one. Could you picture Indiana Jones with a mustache? Not just a mustache, the mustache. The
What?
Magnum P.I. Tom
A Magnum
Selleck
stash.
mustache.
P.I.
Yes.
Jones? P.I. Jones?
Indiana Jones was almost Tom Selleck.
Wow.
That would be
That's
weird.
crazy.
This is arguably the biggest casting near miss in movie history. I think it's really interesting because this is one that a lot of people don't know about. You just can't picture Indiana Jones being anyone other than Harrison Ford. So I'll give you a little bit of background. This is back when CBS was blowing up with their network and TV being what it was, the small screen, if you will. And before Harrison Ford became the face of adventure films, Tom Selleck, he wasn't just considered, he was casted. The role was his. It was given to him by Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. He was the first choice.
Did they like make the character for him? Like I know
Yep.
sometimes the character is made for a specific person in mind.
So when they wrote it, they were thinking of the burly mustache Machado of Tom Selleck. And he liked it. He read the script and he really wanted to do it. But this is kind of back when a contract still meant something. And the studio, the CBS was still kind of, Magnum wasn't a huge hit yet. It wasn't really out there just yet. But as soon as they found out that Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, who were huge and on their way up, that they wanted Tom Selleck even more, that's when CBS was like, oh, whoa, you really want him? You can't have him. You can't have him. You know, and Tom Selleck, true to, you know, being what it was back then, was a man of his word and he was going to honor a contract. And nowadays you just kind of, you know, cry and whine and get your way out of it, or, you know, where there's a will, there's a way, right? But he honored it. And, you know, hindsight being 2020, nobody knew for sure if it was going to be a hit. But when you got somebody like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg attached to it, with the success of Star Wars kind of already in the rear view, and this is the mid 80s, you know, or it looked pretty likely. But Tom Selleck, he would have loved to have played that role, and he really wishes he could have. But even him, Tom Selleck, went as far as saying that, you know, Harrison Ford, he nailed it. And I think looking at it, you couldn't imagine Harrison Ford not being it, because Tom Selleck really, he kind of was that macho man, that man's man, if you will. And even though he kind of had that,
pull off that mustache.
yeah. And he had that kind of humor-ish, but still in the macho kind of way. Harrison Ford wasn't like, you know, the muscly bound alpha male kind of, if you will. He was a little bit self-deprecating, and he did that in his acting, and he did that with Indiana Jones. So I think it would have changed the character. So who knows? You know, maybe it would have just ended with Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's true. Do you think when that Indiana Jones theme music rolls out, though, every time Tom Selleck's like, son of a bitch, should have been me.
It should be
well.
me.
You think his character still would have hated snakes?
I don't know.
I'd
I'd like to think that was probably written in the script already. So, but maybe. But you know, I believe Harrison Ford being afraid of it more than Tom Selleck.
That's
Nobody
Yeah,
gonna mess with that.
The snakes would have been afraid of Selleck's mustache.
That's right.
Yeah,
Manly.
Yeah, and Tom Selleck's version feels like he'd stopped the Nazi pursuit long enough to host a backyard barbecue. Yeah, so let that one marinate for a little bit.
That's a good one. I like
Long
it.
enough. Nicholas, I think you've got a pretty big one.
I got a really big one.
No.
Who hasn't heard of the movie Big? Everybody's heard of the movie Big. If you haven't, you should go watch it. It's a great movie. Tom Hanks. He's a fun-loving kid. Tom Hanks in Big does an amazing job of portraying a 13-year-old. So he's a teenager, a young teenager in a man's body. And really, I don't think anybody else could have done this movie besides Tom Hanks. But believe it or not, there was somebody else that was originally cast for the main character of Josh Baskin.
What?
You guys know who it was?
I do not. Tell me more.
When I first read this, I was like, are you serious? That would have never worked. Robert De Niro.
What?
What?
Did you see Robert De Niro playing the part of Josh Baskin?
I'm talking to me. You talking to me? I don't see nobody else here.
So he was already cast in it, and he was already doing auditions with other actors and actresses. In fact, Elizabeth Perkins, who plays the adult female lead in the movie, auditioned with Robert De Niro, and she said he was very moody. And had they gone through with the movie, it would have been a completely different movie. It would have almost been like a horror of this child trapped in a man's body, like roaming the streets of New York City. It would have been completely different. So thank God he had a schedule conflict and was not able to move forward. And so they got Tom Hanks in there, and then fast forward to one of the best movies, one of Tom Hanks' biggest and no pun intended best movies.
Yeah, I just can't picture anybody else doing that. It's easy to say that, but like you said, he captured the essence of the innocence of a child and a grown man, because I think he was just so well connected with his inner child, right? Because you can see that in a lot of other movies, the playfulness. And Robert De Niro, Bobby De Niro doing that? No way. That would have it would have been like straight to DVD shit that nobody ever heard of. That's crazy. That's interesting.
So I got another one in relation to Tom Hanks.
I'm all earphones.
Tom Hanks was the leading choice for my next movie, and so were a couple other big ones. So these people weren't cast, but they were the first choices of this famous movie. That, again, if you haven't seen it, you should go see it. The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, one of the best.
So I could see Tom Hanks in The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if it would have been as good, because I think Tim Robbins.
Who's he going to play? Brooks?
He was going to be Andy. And so I think Tom Hanks could have done a great job. In fact, I'm sure we're probably not far from AI being able to recreate movies now with the actors that you thought would have been a good job. But there were other big movie stars that were considered for the role of Andy before Tim Robbins. So yeah, Tom Hanks was the first one, but he wasn't able to do it because of another movie. You might have heard of it, Forrest Gump. Then you had Kevin Costner, which I don't think would have been a good choice. I don't think it would have been as good. He wasn't able to do it because of a movie he probably wishes he'd never heard of, Waterworld.
Oh, the biggest flop of its time.
That was a bad one.
That was the first movie to go over $100 million budget. Now that's just regular.
But maybe a lesser known, maybe not lesser known. Another person that was considered for the role was Tom Cruise. Definitely would not have been good
for Andy Dufresne.
For Andy
in Shawshank. Wow.
Yeah, that was so weird. But he chose not to go with it because he was looking to make a movie with some other director. So yeah, those three.
I could see out of the ones you just said, Tom Hanks definitely could have pulled it off, maybe with his own little style. But the other ones just seemed like they would have been so one-dimensional. And Tim Robbins, for the most part, was pretty unknown. He was in Bull Durham and stuff, but he was in Top Gun a little bit, but he wasn't widely known. So I think that kind of really lent itself to the role, and this is number one on my all-time movie list. But I think it lent itself to the role that you needed somebody who you didn't know where the character. If Kevin Costner was playing that role, I'd be like, oh, he's going to get that grizzled little sound or look, and it's going to be Dances with Wolves in a prison, or it's just going to be Field of Dreams and all about him. Corn prison. Yeah.
A couple other fun facts. Did you know that Shawshank Redemption was originally a book before it was the movie? It was actually called Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. It was written by Stephen King. A lot of people don't know that.
I did know that.
And the original character of Red was actually supposed to be a Irishman with red hair, but Morgan Freeman was the only person that they ever thought of when it came time to cast that movie.
Nice. Yep. I guess that makes sense. I'm surprised they didn't change the name and kept it Red.
There's one part where it's like it kind of doesn't make sense in the movie where it's like, why do they call you Red? And he's like, maybe it's because I'm Irish.
Well, then you think of Morgan Freeman as kind of the voice of the movie as well. That's where that's a lot of where that godly kind of over commentary voice of his really got started. Now, Couldn't change that. I've got one for you.
Yeah, what do you got, Christopher?
All right. Nicholas talked about a guy. He mentioned a couple. Tom Cruise. What role am I talking about? I know it sounds insane. Tom Cruise is Iron Man.
Iron Man.
What?
Man, that suit would have been a lot smaller.
Yeah, that sounds just, again, with a lot of the theme of these out of place, you just, what is it, square peg, round hole type of thing. But so long before the Marvel cinema universe existed, Tom Cruise, his name was associated with this. All right. So comic book movies were gimmicky. They didn't know if they would be able to stand on their own. And at the time when this was kind of being shopped around, Marvel was its own thing. However, they did not have the backing, so they had to have a partner. Tom Cruise, I guess, when they were negotiating with him possibly being in it, he wanted full control and to be paid over $25 million to be,
$25 million.
yeah,
What?
to be the Tony Stark.
Before
All
it
right,
even
so,
started? Holy
yeah,
crap.
and he wanted to control it. Can you imagine if Tom Cruise was harnessing or trying to be,
Yeah, that'd
calling
been
the shots
crazy.
at Marvel? It
No,
wouldn't have been the
completely
same.
different.
So you got to put it in perspective. All right, so 2008 is when Iron Man came out, right? And so obviously it started a little before that with production and filming and things. But Tom Cruise was already an established
Right.
action
Very
superhero, right? He has a movie documentary out now called The Last Action Hero. It's because they wanted his name tied to it, but Robert Downey Jr., who was eventually cast in it, was trying to rebuild his image and was much similar to the whole Iron Man. This guy was a disastrous genius trying to put his life together and figure out where it's going. And the movie does a great job, directed by
was
Brett
Tony
Favre,
Stark.
and he just Favreau, Brett Favreau, right? Favreau.
John Favreau.
John Favreau. But so John Favreau.
Insert something about Mary Clip here.
What about Brett Favre?
So he did an amazing job directing Robert Downey Jr. And it was just, and again, it seems like those movies that where you're like, you could be that guy. I could have been that guy, the everyday guy that turned into a superhero and really launched Marvel out of this universe. It really was. People don't really think of, Iron Man anymore as what catapulted, eventually becoming, the ultimate end game
Marvel
of
Studios, yeah.
is everything. I am Iron Man. But yeah, I could not imagine a world where it was not Robert Downey Jr. Now, I know people are probably, if they're watching, thinking they've talked about a multiverse in which Tom Cruise is Iron Man again to bring it full circle. I think they need to leave that in the multiverse. We don't need to see that. I'm good, Robert Downey Jr. We'll see how he does as Dr. Doom, but I digress.
I think Tom Cruise has done good enough to where he's probably never had a day where he's like, I wish I'd done that.
Yeah, no, he's good. He's good.
I like to think he looks at it and is like, nah, old RDJ, he did it. He did it good.
So I got another one for you fellers. All right,
What do
could
you
you
got
imagine?
for us?
So I'll be full transparent here. When I first saw this movie, Elf, which is now considered a Christmas classic, many people, this is in their lineup. They got to watch every year. It is Will Ferrell as Buddy the Elf. All right, but picture
Buddy Elf,
this.
what's your favorite color?
Yeah, plaid. I don't know. I know I like syrup. But can you picture Jim Carrey as Buddy the Elf?
I can, but it would just be a cartoon version.
Yeah,
of
you're
Elf,
right.
You know what I mean?
Few people realize that Jim Carrey was attached to it, and I think when they were developing the character and thinking of who was going to star it, they actually had Jim Carrey in mind. They talked about Will Ferrell, but he was still relatively new. And then by the time they were getting closer to production, and actually we need the name, that's when it was offered to Will Ferrell. But I could definitely see Jim Carrey being Buddy the Elf, but it would have been more, I think, physical comedy, slapstick, and just every other take being completely different. I just think Will Ferrell plays a good, serious, lovable idiot, so to speak.
Idiot. Yeah. So how close would the two movies have been if because he had just done The Grinch not long before that, right?
Right. So he did The
close would those
Grinch, I
have
think,
been?
several years later. So they talked about that. He didn't really have any regrets. Obviously, now Buddy the Elf, he would go on to be, The Grinch. And I don't know. That's definitely debatable on which one's better than that. I'm sure folks will be, Jim Carrey, The Grinch is The Grinch versus Will Ferrell is the Elf.
I just wonder if Jim Carrey had done Elf, where people have been
Mhm.
like, okay, we've seen him do a Christmas movie already, like
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he would have signed up for both, you know? Do you think he
Yeah,
would have? I don't
I
I
don't
don't
think so.
believe the Elf was as big a initial success as The Grinch was. I'm sure the
Mm-mm.
numbers would probably back that up when they both debuted. But I would say I wasn't a huge fan when it first came out. It took, some time of watching it over and over. It's one of my son's favorite movies. I think that was a little bit of him wanting to just make all that pancake, syrup, spaghetti, foods type of stuff, but, it's one of his favorite movies for sure, Everybody likes a good narwhal.
Good luck finding your dad. I think if Jim Carrey done it, it would have been just like I said, it would have been Jim Carrey playing the elf, instead of Will
Yeah.
Ferrell was just the dumb, innocent, childlike elf. Oh, so I think it would have been different. It just would have been completely different. Hey, it might have been huge still. Jim Carrey was on top of the world right around that time, but I think he might have been trying to get away from a little bit of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure at some time he wanted to be a little more serious, and he did that too.
All right, I'll give you a big one.
What you got?
So Forrest Gump, as mentioned a little earlier, but could you imagine anybody other than Tom Hanks playing that? Absolutely
No,
not.
no.
Absolutely not.
Number 2 on my all-time list. But how about John Travolta? John Travolta, he openly admitted passing on Forrest Gump. It may have been the biggest mistake of his career, in his
Mm.
words. So at the time, John Travolta was trying to rebuild the momentum after a difficult stretch professionally.
Mhm.
I think
Right.
he did some movies that were questionable. He did Look Who's Talking, which actually kind of got him up a little bit. But then he did like Look Who's Talking 2 and a couple other, just bad ones. He was still kind of trying to figure his way back out to being, John Travolta. So he passed on this one, and I think this was definitely the right call. I mean, Tom Hanks won the Academy Award for this,
Yeah.
but trying to play that, it's such a fine line. It's like Tropic Thunder with Ben Stiller and him playing the mentally challenged individual. And that,
Yeah.
yeah, but I can't imagine John Travolta trying to do that. It would have been mocked. Tom Hanks did a great job of being innocent but smart and representing the character, and that was a lot of his doing. It wasn't a direction that was given to him. He kind of crafted that character, and it was the right mixture of, I'm still a person. I know what
Right.
love is, but you can be the lovable guy rather than being the guy you laugh at. You're kind of, watching
Yeah.
this adventure. And Hanks made that character. He created it so it could be funny, heartbreaking, inspirational, and completely sincere all at once. And John Travolta might have given it a great performance, and who knows what it came from it. But Hanks gave us an American icon.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the relationship between was it Zemeckis, the director, and Tom Hanks, which they would go on to do other movies as well. Like I think Castaway was one.
Yep.
That relationship was so strong. Who knows if that would have been there with
The
Travolta
chemistry.
and Zemeckis?
Right.
Zemeckis also gave us Back to the Future. So just yeah, I wouldn't touch a thing. It's perfect.
Yeah. So John Travolta, he turned it down to ultimately become Vincent Vega in Pulp Fiction. And that movie really kind of launched him back into the
Oh, yeah.
stratosphere and opened all the doors so he could make good and shitty movies again
Yeah.
too. Like
He had a
Get
streak.
Shorty.
There was a streak for a while where I'd say, like 5 years where he's just like, man, every Travolta movie that comes out, what was
Face
that?
Off. That was a good one.
Yep.
Phenomenon, I think, when that one, all these just like, man,
It wasn't like he made a choice that ended up costing him. Who knows where his path would have gone, good or bad.
Yep.
But that ultimately, and he did such a great job in what was a, supporting role in Pulp Fiction, which had such a great cast and telling of the story. And I think it opened up so many doors because it got back to him showing how he could just kind of act. And if he did Forrest Gump, it would have been a character. And I think it would have been even more so if he was the one doing it.
that really would have, I think, man, the ripple effect, right, in the cinema universe could have changed a lot of things. So I think that was a win for sure.
What else do you got for us?
Oh, so this one's kind of sad. And
wanna be sad.
kind of surprising. Like it's like I think I knew about this one, but maybe I didn't. I don't know. So Shrek was actually
sad.
originally supposed to be played by Chris Farley.
Man.
And not only was it supposed to be played by him, he did almost 90% of the movie.
Wow.
They were almost done.
What?
Yeah.
I
So
didn't
there are old videos that you can go back where they did like this kind of like real crappy, cartoon drawings with him and Donkey with Eddie Murphy,
know. Wow.
Dang.
where they're talking, where they're sitting around a fire and they're talking, and it's Chris Farley's voice. So they were almost done with with all the voice recordings, and then he tragically passed away. And so
Dang.
they actually didn't immediately say, okay, we got to scratch this and find somebody else. They actually confronted one of Chris Farley's brothers, Kevin Farley, and
Right.
because he sounded so much like him, they asked him if he would finish the movie for Chris. And he did. He admittedly, in a later interview, admitted that he didn't 100% know what it was. He had talked to Chris briefly about it, and he was like, "Hey, what are you working on?" He's like, "Oh, I'm doing this movie about an ogre." And he's like, "And I didn't even really think about it." And then it wasn't until like years later, like 2 or 3 years later, that he heard about this movie that his kids wanted to go see called Shrek, about an ogre. And that's when he connected the dots and was like, "Oh my God, this is the movie that Chris was working on." Pretty crazy how it all came, together, but sad, especially when you go watch the video that's out there and you hear Chris Farley's voice.
Well, why don't you want to talk about it?
Why do you want to talk about it?
Why are you answering the question with a question?
Why are you asking questions I don't want to answer?
Why are you blocking?
I'm not blocking.
Then why do you have problems expressing your wants?
I don't. I want you to shut up.
Would have been a much different character. Obviously, it wouldn't have been a, someone
Scottish.
playing with a Scottish voice.
Right.
But I think it would have worked.
What would you have done though? If they had completely finished the film, even if it was a success, what would have happened then? It just ends there, or would they have tried to change the voice? I mean, we'll never know. But
Maybe they would have just stuck with Kevin Farley.
I definitely could have seen Chris Farley though. It seems like that's written for him. Not that he was a green ogre, but he was a big, fun-loving guy who probably could have turned on the whole grumpy ogre thing, and man, that would have been pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's one of the ones where I think it would have worked, but yeah, we lost him. So
I got one. All right. Everybody knows Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but they probably don't know the actor. A lot of people don't even know who stars in it. Who is Ferris Bueller? Well,
I know.
as the movie is cut, it ended up being Matthew Broderick. However, people know this actor by name, and they can picture him right away. Johnny Depp is Ferris Bueller.
Ferris Bueller.
Yeah. So
Bueller.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off was originally the main role was offered to Johnny Depp, but because of scheduling conflicts, he was unable to do it. So when John Hughes wanted to cast, he wanted Johnny Depp, but because of the conflict, his schedule, he turned it down. And again, Matthew Broderick, who again, just because folks probably don't know all the movies he's in, I think that's why he was so successful, because he was that everyday kid, right? Skipping school, stuff he would get into, and then the other ensemble, the sporting cast and everything. But Johnny Depp probably would put just too much of you think about it like a suave kind of feel. It'd be too cool, too slick.
Cool. Yeah.
It'd be, the slick leather jacket all the time, the slick back hair. And yes, I know he's famous for those type of roles as well. Of course, now he's probably more famous than anything for being Captain Jack Sparrow.
Well,
You can play, obviously, all kinds of roles, but I could not imagine Johnny Depp as taking over Matthew Broderick's roles, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
I wonder why John Hughes wanted him.
Yeah, what did he see about him? I
Yeah,
don't
like
know.
wouldn't he have been probably in 21 Jump Street around that time frame?
yeah.
So I wonder if that maybe
Yeah, I think it probably would have been, John Hughes. He was very good into being connected with culture during that time frame. With all the movies. Home Alone, was it Pretty in Pink, Uncle Buck, 16 Candles, Uncle Buck. So he was definitely he had it nailed for that genre, or that age group, if you will. So he probably thought, like Johnny Depp, 21 Jump Street.
Yeah.
He's going to fit right here. He's going to draw in that same crowd. But I think, by happenstance and good fortune that Matthew Broderick became Ferris Bueller. I'm glad Ferris Bueller is Matthew Broderick and Captain Jack is Johnny Depp. It would have been a different movie altogether. Like I said, it would have been stranger. It wouldn't have been as relaxed.
I agree with you. Well, I got one for you. And then
Wow us.
throw it to Nicholas to give us one, an older actor who might be the one that let it all get away. But first, me. All right, so everybody knows the movie The Matrix, right? And
Oh, yeah.
the Wachowskis at the time were these new cutting-edge directors that just had a vision. And Neo, being the most important character of this future franchise, they had their sights on Will Smith, none other than the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Men in Black?
Yes. So at the time, Will Smith was pretty much the biggest movie superstar in the world. He had already done Bad Boys,
Independence Day.
He had a string of huge hits to show that he wasn't just a small screen draw. He was the movie action hero. But when they showed this to him and he read through the script, he just didn't get it. So Will Smith didn't necessarily just have a scheduling or anything like that. He didn't get it. He didn't understand what the Wachowskis were trying to show him, what it was going to be. The Matrix was ahead of its time. These directors were ahead of their time.
So he was definitely not the one.
No, he was
You see
not.
the code.
Will Smith, he decided not to do it. He listened to the pitch. It was just ahead of his time, and he didn't understand it. So he instead chose to do the movie Wild Wild West. What a bomb. That movie was panned as one of the most biggest bombs of that era, that time frame. He had a relationship with the director at the time, so it made sense for him to do it and go in a kind of a different direction because he had done all these action movies. This was kind of an action movie, but it was like a new age, modern twist on a Western with a modern feel and even a futuristic feel at the end of the movie. But other than Cisco singing that song, the theme song, that was a bigger hit than the movie. That movie was very forgettable and terrible. So Smith might have made a cooler Neo, but Reeves made Neo believable.
Yeah.
All right.
That's crazy.
So I'll turn it over to Nicholas to bring us on home with the king of passing on hits.
Okay. So this individual passed up on 2 pretty big hits, but I'll start with the first one. Burt Reynolds had the opportunity to be the 007.
What? He
Really?
did?
He did. But he turned it down, and he said that no American should ever play the secret agent. That it should be someone who's British. And he later went on to say that was one of his biggest regrets ever. That he could have pulled it off, and that he should have pulled the trigger. But at the time, I guess he was on a show where he was playing a detective. He did some guest appearances on the show at the FBI, and he said he wanted to get out of that genre, and so he turned it down, and then stated that he didn't think that an American should play 007, and then again later said he thinks he could have done it, and it was one of his biggest regrets. Another big role that he also turned down, and so it comes full circle, was the part of Han Solo in Star Wars.
Really? He turned that down?
Yep. So again, another huge role. Could have changed his entire life. So would have changed those movies drastically. But I think he could have been a good 007. I think it would have been interesting to see him.
Could have seen him as Han too, smart ass, Smoking the Bandit, Han Solo.
Yeah, he definitely would have been a really good Han Solo. Him and Harrison Ford, their demeanors are pretty similar. So I think either one of them would have done a good job.
I also saw that he was connected to Die Hard in some form or fashion, and he turned that down, and along with Terms of Endearment, which was a big, I think, Oscar draw. I think there was a certain time in his life where he probably was having everything thrown at him. Bert, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. I mean, he was really on top of the world.
Yeah, he was.
He could have chose to do anything he wanted. So I think if you look hard enough, 6 Degrees of Burt Reynolds here, he's probably connected to all kinds of different movies that he just couldn't do them all. But man, just think if he had done 007 and him doing it ended up making 007 like an American franchise, like it made that shift. That would have been absolutely crazy that, Pierce Bronson coming after Daniel Craig, Roger, these other ones. What if they, if he was to, I don't know if he was going to take the mantle from Sean Connery or Roger Moore, but if he had taken it from there, like what if it just became an American?
Yeah, no more MI6.
Yeah. Another fun fact, and this is just going off of what our father says. Burt Reynolds grew up in West Palm Beach, which is where we grew up, which is where our father and our family grew up. And our uncle, who was 10 years older than our dad, grew up with Buddy Reynolds, which is what Burt Reynolds went by when he was growing up. Old Buddy.
Burt Reynolds was his stage name, huh?
Interesting. Well, way to bring us home. That is some good fun facts. After today's episode, one thing is clear. Hollywood's greatest superpower isn't casting. It's accidentally avoiding terrible ideas at the last possible second. Somewhere in an alternate universe, Tom Selleck is outrunning boulders. Will Smith is dodging bullets. Jim Carrey is consuming maple syrup by the gallon. And the scary part, there's probably a podcast in this universe talking about how weird it would have been if Harrison Ford played Indiana Jones. Alternate. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Welcome Distraction with the Kemp Brothers. If today's episode has proved anything, it's somehow that Hollywood's greatest masterpiece started with someone being unavailable, turning down a script, or simply making a bad decision exactly the right time. For Christopher and Nicholas, I'm Brett. We'll catch you next time. And until then, remember, behind every legendary movie is a studio executive who was probably wrong first.